Hi, I'm Lou Scott, and this is the Geppetto Room. We don't have to be creative to be creative. You just have to be you. Because here we're going to explain and explore techniques, methods, to make you think about decisions you have to make. We have to make transformative decisions. Decisions that are going to enrich the way you live, the way you work, the way you thrive in our state. Now today I'm going to talk about biases. Biases are barriers to good decisions. Biases are barriers to transformative decision, because without barriers you can make a transformative decision. With barriers you can't. And we have a lot of decisions to make. A lot of good things are happening in Rutland now. They're going to consider refurbishing downtown, making it a park. And the possibility of Depot Park could be a permanent farmers market. We're going to redo the railroad. We can think about welcoming people, welcoming immigrants. We're going to think about DEI, all these things, the initiative for inclusion. These will take good decisions, and we can't have biases. So I'm going to spend some time talking about biases. So if you can recognize a bias in yourself, you can make a better decision, because you can say, well, I'm not going to deal with that bias. Or you can recognize it in someone else, and you can deal with him because you realize that he's coming from a biased standpoint. Now, what is a bias? Let me paraphrase what leading psychologists say about what a bias is. A cognitive bias is a systematic pattern in your brain, a systematic pattern in your brain and in your judgments. And what it does is, as an individual, you create your own subjective conclusions. You don't base the decision on information, on education, on data. You place it on your own subjective conclusions. Your bias is your subjective conclusion. So in reality, what you're really doing is creating your own reality. Now, if you create your own reality, how can you deal with a decision that's in the real reality? So with a bias, you cannot make decisions well, and you certainly can't make transformative decisions, and we need transformative decisions, period. It's the only decision we need to make. So I'm going to go over some of the biases. There are 11 of them, and if you're interested in talking about these at any time after the show, like write me or send me an email or call me, and we can discuss them, and I'll send you a list of these biases. Because if you can understand when you're biased or when somebody else is biased, you're going to make transformative decisions, and we need them right now. Not only to get people, the young people to come here and young people to stay, because to do that, we have to make transformative decisions. Let's talk about the biases now. Now, number one, and these are interesting things. Number one is called a confirming bias. Confirming bias is an individual only pays attention to what exists already, what he knows, what he understands already. What he understands already and he's comfortable with, he confirms it. So when he hears things that are not confirming what he believes, he's not going to believe it. So what he's going to do, he's not going to react to the educational part, to the data, to the research, to the situation. He's going to react to what he's conforming to, what he believes in, what he spends his time reaffirming. When you have a confirming bias, what happens is you read and you deal with only things that confirm what you believe. You're not open for other things. You create a reality that's not real. You can't make a decision. That's a confirming bias. Second bias is the all aboard bias. We all do this. It's very simple. We believe things because other people believe them. Think about that. We don't believe them because of the data, of the situation, or the decisional things we have to make. No, we believe them because other people believe it. Other people go this way. And the more people, all aboard, the more people who jump on the bandwagon or jump on the train to that particular idea, the more you're convinced with this bias that they're right, and therefore I'm going to be right with them. No, you're right when you study yourself of the actual decisions. When you look at the data, look at the situation, and you always ask yourself, in every decision we make in this state, is it transformative? Because only a transformative decisions will get the foundational problem we have. Get young people to live here, and the young people who are living here stay here. That's the second bias. Third bias is the halo effect. The halo effect, we all suffer from this. If we made a good decision, or we made some past decisions that we felt were good, and they were successful, and now we have to face a new one, a new decision. Well, we have a tendency in this bias to a halo effect, meaning that what we were so good in the past, well, we're going to be so good with this particular decision. What happens is you end up solving new problems with old ideas. You heard me say that many times. New problems with old ideas. Doesn't work. This is not transformative. But you have this tendency because you did it in the past. There's a halo effect. It comes back and says, oh, I made a good decision then. This will be just as good a decision. And yeah, but it'll be based on the past, not on the present. It won't be a good decision, for sure. Number 4 is a chain bias. Now, this is strange, and the psychologists really don't explain it well, and I didn't understand it when I did my research. There's a tendency to believe only what you first hear. If you're listening to a discussion about a decision, and you're a stakeholder, whatever the decision might be, you have a tendency to believe only what you first hear. You kind of eliminate everything else, what everything is said, all the data. If they say something at first, that's what you're going to believe, and that's going to bias your decision, and you're not going to make a good decision. Certainly not a transformative decision. It's called a chain bias. Now, this is a heuristic bias. Heuristic, H-E-U-R-I-S-T-I-C. Now, again, they can't explain this bias, but we do it. We only believe what we learn quickly, what's easily to learn. If the data that's presented is difficulty, we ignore it. We don't deal with it. Wherever we put it, we don't deal with it as a decision. If the data or research or things we have to deal with in a particular situation, if it's too difficult to attain, it's not easily understood, we don't deal with it. It just goes by the wayside. And when you eliminate data, when you eliminate research and create your own reality, how can you make a decision? Because it's based on not reality. It's not based on the facts, not based on the data. Heuristic bias. Yeah, we all do this. Some people call it the Austrian effect bias. I call it the head in the sand bias. You come to a decision, you're decision making, you're in a process of decision making as a stakeholder. And you're not going to believe there's something that comes up, something that bothers you, something that's too difficult, whatever the case might be, and you turn your back on it. You put your head in the sand, okay? Or you turn your back. You're not going to deal with it. You're not going to take that consideration. You're not going to take those actions. You're not going to take those effects and apply them to the decision. You're just not going to deal with it. You're blinded for some reason, to those things that you just don't believe. You don't believe, they're not consistent with your beliefs, they're not consistent with your comfort zone, whatever the case might be, they bias your decision. And when you get a biased decision, you can never make good decisions. That's called a head in the sand or the ostrich bias. Now, 7th bias is called the serial bias. And here again is a strange kind of bias. They don't understand it. I read about it. They can't explain it. It's interesting. This bias says that you will understand and you will deal with facts that are first presented, like the other one, and last presented. The middle, you'll forget. Whatever is presented in the middle, you could care less about. You just won't consider it. You won't consider that data, only what's presented in the first and only what's presented at the last. Now, remember what we talked about when we were creative, that you never accept the first idea if you make it a creative idea because it's never the right idea. The last one could be. But here's something when you're making presentations. You don't want to be in the middle because people have a tendency to forget what's been said in the middle. They remember what's been said in the first, what's said in the last. So if you're going to make a presentation for anything, make sure you're first up or your last stop. Don't be in the middle because you get lost in the middle. Okay? And when you're making a decision, what you're doing is you eliminate, could be good information in the middle. Good information in the middle, but you ignore it. You ignore it. And you can't make a good decision. Okay. Here we have, it's called the choice decision bias, the choice bias. Here, you have certain opinions about things. You've made choices in the past. If this decision requires you to change those choices, to change those feelings you have, to change the beliefs you have, or choices that you made, you're not going to do it. Your bias says, no, I made a choice. It seemed good in the past. No, I'm going to use it again. But when you use it again, you fall back right into that trap that eliminates transformative decision. What's that trap? You solve new problems with old ideas. And you add all these biases you might have, and you're never going to get a good decision. And we're going to have lots of problems. That's called a choice bias. Then there's the attribution bias. Here's a bias based on personality. Somebody started to present to you, presenting data about or making decisions. If he or she are good looking and they present well and they dress well and they like there's something about them you like, what you do is you tend to believe them only because they look what they look like. Not necessarily what they're saying, not necessarily what they're concluding or deciding on or deducing. No, you believe because you like what they look like. You like what kind of like whatever it is that you like about them. You attribute that to what they're saying, and the attribution doesn't work that way. They can be talking nonsense, and you're affected by how they look. You don't want that bias again. You can't make good decisions if you're basing them on attraction. This is called the illusion. Actually, it should be called the delusionary bias. Here, you hear all the facts, you hear all the action, you have a difficult time getting cause and effect. You have a very difficult time saying that this cause is going to cause this effect. So what you do, if you don't make any decisions, you fantasize, you have a delusion. You say, oh, it'll be okay, it'll be all right. So you end up not contributing to a decision you have to contribute to because you're deluding yourself. You say, well, now it'll work. Even though there's a deep feeling inside you that says it may not work, you're not going to deal with it. Your bias says, I'm not going to deal with that. It'll work. You dream it. You pray. Well, it doesn't work that way. If you don't deal with the programs, you don't deal with the details, you can wish and pray for the rest of your life, whatever, you're not going to make a good decision. And we need good decisions. Now, the last one is an interesting one. It's called the Dunningkrueger effect. Now, we all suffer from this, and we've all met people who are like this. The Dunningkrueger effect is that you have a tendency to say something. This is a bias. Say something. It would very dominant, what you say, very sure of yourself, very certain that this is the truth. Well, it isn't the truth. And you don't make no effort to find out if it is the truth. But when you say it, it's the truth. You believe it. And you're going to try to make other people believe it, even though you have a doubt whether it's true or not. You're not going to investigate the truth. You're going to say, this is the truth. Don't we all do that? We all say things many times, and we have a vague idea. We do some vague research, and yet the way we talk about it, it's like gospel. This is it. Well, that's a bias. And if you introduce untruths into a system or a decision where people are depending on the truth, on the data, you can't make a decision. That's the Dunningkrueger bias. Now, these are all the biases. Let me remind you again that if you want to talk about it, send me an email or write me or whatever, or you want a list of these biases. They're very important because now we're at an opportunity where we have good things happening in the town. We have the DEI, we have welcoming, we have downtown thinking about refurbishing, we have the rail station, we might think about a new gazebo. These are positive things that can give Vermont, and Rutland especially, a vigor, a new energy, a vibe, a better economics. That's what we need if we make the best decisions. These are opportunities. When you make those kind of decisions, the first thing you want to ask yourself is it transformative? Will it excite or attract young people to come here? We have a demographic problem, and it's the undercurrent foundational problem of all our problems. We need younger people. So when you make a decision, I don't care what the decision is, the first question you want to ask yourself is it transformative? Will it attract younger people? We have all these opportunities now. Let's not make them ordinary ideas. Let's not make our biases bias and go back to common ideas. Even great ideas, excellent, they're not going to work. What's going to work is transformative. Starting again. Now, let me conclude. How do you get there? In conclusion, you want to make sure that you don't have any biases. And there's a great Buddhist story about that might influence you, and so far I think it interesting. This individual was going to go see this girl, this master, and he had all these questions to ask, and he wanted to know all this new wisdom. So he rushed up on top of the mountain, and as soon as he got there, the master took out some tea, was talking to him, and the guy kept talking. I did this, I did that, I did this, oh, I think of this, and he went on and on and on, and the girl just kept pouring the tea. Soon the tea overflowed the cup all over the place. And the disciple said, but Master, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he said, I'm trying to demonstrate. The master said to him, I'm trying to demonstrate that you can't come and look for wisdom. You can't make decisions or look for wisdom if you're filled. You must empty your cup. And then wisdom can come in. So what does that mean when you make decisions? It means open your mind. Clear your mind. Clear your mind. Make sure that you're listening to all the middles and the ends and so forth. You're not ignoring things. You're not dealing with some things that are comfortable. You're not afraid. Change is a fearful, but you're not afraid. We need change. What you should be afraid of is not making changes, not making transformative decisions. All these opportunities we have, let's take advantage of. We don't want anything that's common. We don't want anything that's been done before, has even been done by people nearby us. We want to be unique. That's how we're going to bring energy, vibrance, economic solidarity to downtown Rutland and to the state. That's how you're going to do it. So eliminate, empty the mind, and make decisions that are transformative. With that, I'm Lou Scott. This is the Geppetto Room, where you don't have to be creative to be creative. You just have to be you and be transformative you. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.